The MK Mental Health Hour with Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support in partnership with Thomas Connolly Estate Agents and MKFM.
Just gone 7 o'clock on your Sunday evening. Hello, it's Leah with you for another Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour. Tonight we're joined by Kat Newman from Youth Counselling Service and John from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support, talking all about bullying. And we continue with MK's biggest hits like this from Rihanna and Calvin Harris.
The MK Mental Health Hour in partnership with Thomas Connolly Estate Agents.
Rihanna, Calvin Harris, We Found Love on MKFM. Good evening, it's Leah with you for another Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour. This evening we're going to be discussing bullying with a very special guest. But before we meet Kat from Yes, let's say a big hello to John Manning. Hello, John.
Hello.
Lovely to have you with us as always. So you are John from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support here in Milton Keynes. Yes. You join us every Sunday from 7 o'clock and we discuss a variety of topics all to do with mental health and provide a bit of a safe space. So tonight we're talking about bullying.
Yes.
In many different forms and how parents can kind of help with children and kind of action plans and all of that kind of stuff. But before we get into that, what's been going on with Arthur Ellis? And you've been at Cambridge, haven't you?
Yeah. So I went to do a talk at Cambridge Union, which was really surreal. Not necessarily my typical little scene.
What were you doing there?
Yeah, I was doing a talk. So Arthur Ellis is basically, our initiative is to make the nation or help the nation become independent from illness. So teaching strategies and tools to actually overcome ill mental health. And we do that with businesses through our training, and we're looking to actually build a free emotional support service for children based off of all of these different corporate pieces of work that we do, as well as supporting adults. So we're kind of building a variety of different business services, all to underpin funding a children's service. So went to talk about that, and it was 20 minutes talking and about
a long time
7
to
hours of sweating.
Oh my goodness.
It was so nerve-wracking. But it was great, and the first thing that they do just to settle your nerves down is give you a book to sign. All the speakers have to sign a book, and signed a book, and Gandhi signed it once, and it was like this nuts book.
Goodness.
It was incredible. So
well, now John Manning is in that book.
Yeah, so
other people should be nervous.
I think
when
Bill
they talk
Gates
there.
signed it about 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
Stephen Fry's been there, Russell Brand. So
in
it
good
was
company,
quite an honour.
then.
But yeah, it was kind of a little bit. I was just so ashamed of my writing. That was such bad handwriting, but
and all is going well at Arthur Ellis, and there's of course been fantastic feedback from this show.
Yeah, so we've been getting referrals week on week from adults. So every adult we support, the each session that they pay for, it pays for a child to get support. So it's not necessarily just that they're helping themselves; they're also able to help someone else. We've had 4 people start in the company as well, which has been amazing, and it's all about Christmas now. So we sell bracelets, which also pay for a child's session, and they're made by Ed Sheeran's mum, Imogen. So we're just figuring out how to get people to consider them as gifts and
well,
maybe
a
buy
perfect
someone.
time, isn't
it's
it?
It's a perfect gift.
1st of December today, and perfect gift for people starting their Christmas shopping.
Absolutely.
And of course going to a fantastic local cause as well.
A mental health bracelet made by Ed Sheeran's mum. What could go wrong?
What can go wrong with that?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, this evening we're going to be discussing bullying, and joining us in the studio we have Kat from Youth Counselling Service. So welcome to the show, Kat.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you with us. So if people haven't heard about Yes before, can you give us a bit of an insight into the work that you do in Milton Keynes?
Yeah, absolutely. So Youth Counselling Service provides free counselling to 11 to 21-year-olds who live, work or learn in Milton Keynes. Young people can refer themselves, parents or teachers or other professionals can refer them. It's quite easy via our website. If you Google Youth Counselling Service, we come straight up.
Fantastic. And you work in Milton Keynes. I'm noticing that it's Youth Counselling Service. What's the I stand for in the middle?
Yeah, so the charity has been around since the 1970s and existed in different forms. It used to be part of the council and it provided kind of support and information and advice. Over the years, it's gone into more of a counselling service. So we've tried to keep the history whilst also kind of recognising what we do now. And there we have Youth Counselling Service.
Right, okay. And it's been going obviously a very long time. You're talking back to the 1970s. 1970s, and some great work that you do. I suppose bullying is something that you see quite frequently.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that a lot of our young people who come to use the service struggle with, and it's something that we're excited to talk about today.
Okay, well, we're going to be looking into the kind of various forms of bullying and the various levels that it can kind of come about after we hear from Black Eyed Peas. Now, this is Where Is the Love on MKFM. Black Eyed Peas, Where Is the Love on MKFM. It is the Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour for your Sunday evening, joined as always by John from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support and Kat Newman from Youth Counselling Service. And this evening we're talking all about bullying. And before we kind of go into further details about warning signs and kind of different levels, I guess we should kind of address, what is bullying, John?
What is bullying?
What is bullying?
Bullying is essentially, and for the nature or the purposes of this, we should probably call the person being bullied the victim and just kind of refer to them as that throughout the show, just for clarity. But it's essentially where a victim of bullying is is receiving unwanted harm to them in any sort of form. So that could be emotional, it could be physical, it could be psychological, kind of impact to their day-to-day life from somebody else. So that's kind of a very so it's not too real life view of it. I suppose in relation to actually what might be happening to the victim, Kat, there's probably a few things that it would start as and maybe ramp up. It's not necessarily just someone getting punched in the face once.
Yeah.
It could be a variety of different forms.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot about it recently, as we've seen more and more young people who are experiencing bullying. And
has that been the trend in Milton Keynes? You see more and more?
Yeah, I think we've seen more cases recently, but I don't know. I can't really comment on whether that's something that we've seen over years or months. But it's definitely something that I have noticed more recently, and I think that it's about a consistent pattern of behaviour with an intended effect on the victim. That is what is seen as bullying, and I think that a lot of the literature tries to encourage people not to discuss kind of occasional rude or mean incidents as bullying, because whilst they're terrible and they do have an impact on individuals, the corrosive long-term impact of a pattern of incidents on a victim is a lot more damaging, and we don't want to kind of lessen the impact of the name and the word of bullying, because it can be a life-threatening
it can really
thing
escalate
to
such a degree. And then it's not a one-off thing. It's similar to in adult life. You know, if we just are having a bad day, we might snap at someone, which is, you know, you wouldn't necessarily call that bullying as such.
No.
It's a one-off incident because you're having a rough day. You might then a week later or so go and apologise to that person. So by calling every incident of, you know, behaving a little bit mean to someone, good word, mean to someone, to call that bullying every single time, like Kat said, it would just belittle the word. And kind of downplay it, where bullying is quite a lot more than that, really.
Yeah, and it can have really significant long-term impacts on the victims in terms of kind of psychologically and emotionally. And, you know, we've seen quite a lot of things on TV even about people meeting their childhood bully as an adult, and how impactful and life-changing it's been to kind of being able to forgive that. So,
and I mean, I suppose it's important that you're from the Youth Counselling Service here in Milton Keynes, but bullying continues into adult life in workplaces and in lots of different guises.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. I think it can have lifelong, life-changing effects, and it should be taken really seriously.
Especially if we are looking at young people, and in our training quite a bit, we focus on what different experiences mean to us and how we develop different beliefs and the way that we respond to situations. So if, as young people, we're constantly kind of in that, we've got our guard up and we're in that kind of, we're being bullied or we're being threatened kind of situation, then we build up behaviours to protect against that, and that might subject us to missing out on opportunities in later life or dealing with situations in a maybe unhelpful way later on. So when we get into adulthood and we're still experiencing that, that's where you can see different psychological issues coming up, like depression, anxiety. that sort of thing.
Well, it is a really, really important topic that we will continue to discuss. And actually, next we're going to be talking about the warning signs to be looking out for after we hear from Shapeshifters. Lola's theme, which is on the way for you next.
The MK Mental Health Hour with Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support.
Big tune that from Shapeshifters. It's Lola's theme on MKFM. It's 25 minutes past 7 on your Sunday evening with Leah on the Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour. And we're joined by John from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support and Kat from Youth Counselling Service here in Milton Keynes. Tonight we're discussing bullying. We've already kind of gone through what is bullying and kind of the various forms that it can kind of come about. Now we're going to be looking at the warning signs. And there are certain things that you can look out for, aren't there, John?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and with bullying, there was a report done back in 2018. So there's not like a real up-to-date figures one, but around 1 in 6 young people reported being bullied.
Right.
But that's reported. It's not necessarily the ones that are going through it and not sort of telling anybody, or no one's like picking up on these early warning signs that they could be. Because it might be that the young people don't have anyone to speak to about it. So it's really important to know these signs, and there are certain things that we can look out for or maybe pick up on or look at differently, rather than just assuming that they're being quiet for a period of time or something like that.
And I suppose these are relevant if you are a parent, if you are a colleague, if you're a friend. I mean, it's kind of teachers, for everybody really. This is very relatable.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So these are all warning signs that we can all be looking out for.
Yeah, so there's a variety of them, and I think we start kind of with withdrawal.
Yeah.
I don't know if, Kat, you see that with typically the young people who would come to your service might be quite withdrawn, quiet, not really that open. And a bit defensive.
Absolutely. I think it's a significant change in their character, and obviously each individual is different, so it might look different on each person. So some people might be very loud and outgoing all of a sudden, as opposed to being withdrawn. But I think withdrawn is quite a good example of somebody who is not feeling like they can be themselves in different spaces. And
it's those kind of changes that are probably quite important, because when we work with adults, we sort of say that if you're looking to identify someone who's going through a rough patch or they're just not quite themselves, then it's changes in character. If people are just typically irritable and angry, I know a few of them, they're just like that in general, which is fine. Yeah, it's fine. If that's their normal character, if they're outgoing and quite loud and brash, then that's just them. But it's the changes that you're looking for. Yeah. So withdrawal is one of them. If they go quiet, or like the reverse, as you say, they could go from being quiet to kind of overcompensating and being quite bubbly and brash all of a sudden. Yeah. But then there's some other things around eating and stuff as well.
Yeah, changes in kind of eating habits. So either eating too much, not eating enough, not eating at all. Again, very dependent on the individual. I would normally try to look at what their normal habits are, and then whether there's been any significant changes. It's very similar to what you just said. Some young people don't eat a huge amount anyway. Some eat quite a lot. So it would depend on them individually and what's normal for them. Yeah,
and just avoiding situations as well where there could be food around, because if that's the source of the bullying and they're being bullied for something related to body image or anything like that, then they might start bringing themselves out of situations where there's going to be food involved.
Absolutely, and I think people often think about people who are bullied because they're fat, but there's quite a lot of people who are bullied because they're underweight or they're skinny or scrawny. And I think particularly boys and men are getting more and more issues around body image and having to appear like some kind of Avenger superhero. And I think it's a real growing issue.
Yeah, it is. I know that I've got friends who sort of beat themselves up quite a lot about. I don't think anyone beats them up for it. There's the odd comment now and then, but then again, it's that differentiating between what is sort of a bit of banter and what is bullying, really. But they struggle to put on weight. Like they're just naturally very, very skinny people.
Different, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just identifying those significant changes. One of them could also be the physical side. That could actually be bruises and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's
they could
something
be
to look out for.
And things that don't have an explanation. So if I don't know if kids still go to parks, I guess. I don't know if they do anymore, or just sit on their PlayStations or something. But if there are little injuries that don't really have an explanation to them, or bruises that just show up out of nowhere, that could be something going on there.
Yeah, burn marks, all sorts of different things.
And it could get quite horrible.
Yeah, could be quite bad.
So,
and if they're not willing to talk about it, or they're not willing to describe how that injury happened, or how it came about, or why they're missing a certain item that they normally always have, I think that's a really good indicator that something is not right for them.
Yeah, so unexplained things like injuries, but also unexplained, like, where is your phone gone? Where's your books? All of that sort of stuff might just start miraculously disappearing.
So lots of things that we can kind of be on the lookout for. We're going to be chatting about what to do and how you can support somebody if all of this sounds quite familiar after Nico and Vince. This is Am I Wrong on MKFM. Nico and Vince, Am I Wrong on MKFM. So this is the Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour. Tonight we're discussing bullying. And Kat, we've just heard about the signs to kind of look out for. And if that all sounds quite familiar, if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if a co-worker's going through something like this, then we're going to talk about what you can do to support somebody if you notice those signs. And you're saying kind of first and foremost is actually to take notice and listen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the most important thing is that when a young person has built up the courage to tell you something that is really difficult and hard for them to say, that you don't minimise it, or you don't just kind of flippantly push it away because you don't know how to deal with it. It's really important that a young person feels listened to, that they feel heard, and that you explain and acknowledge that it is painful and it is difficult for them, and you are going to support them, and you're going to help them to find a solution to make it better ultimately.
I think with that as well, we underestimate listening, and I think sometimes we can think that we're listening while we're making the dinner or making a cup of tea or something, but really to put all that down and then give full attention to what that person is saying can make the difference sometimes about how open they're going to be about something, or how engaged they're going to be with that discussion. If you're kind of pottering around the kitchen, or you're watching TV or on your phone, and someone's trying to open up to you, it can be really difficult for them to do that fluidly and do it quite, I suppose, with a lot of trust, because they're going to be really vulnerable at that point. So just putting all of that stuff down and really focusing your attention on that person that is reaching out to you is probably super important to make sure that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of young people who come for counselling at Youth Counselling Service, one of the things that they're most grateful for is that they get that chance to just sit and listen and talk, and have someone listen to them and their feelings, and to validate that and to kind of bear witness to it. And it is so important. It's important for children and young people, but it's also important for adults. It's important for all ages, for us to feel that we're seen, we're heard, we're supported, what we feel matters. And that, we've got control and choice over different options over what to do next.
And if people feel like they are struggling to talk about something, you can encourage them to do other things like drawing or more creative things as well.
Yeah, drawing. Like if anyone spots these signs that we've discussed, then drawing is a really good way to draw out a scene, like what happened, and then you can explore it afterwards, or just writing down sort of like a statement, I suppose, of what went on. And also, Kat, you mentioned about sandpits and stuff, and using different toys to show things. So that was really cool.
In play therapy, what a lot of counsellors will use is they'll use different toys, or different kind of it could be Play-Doh or sand or something else, and it's just a different way to try to get young people to describe the scene without having to use words, particularly if children are very young. They find it really difficult to kind of explain their emotions and kind of what's happening. So working with toys or art or journaling or writing letters or whatever that might look like. Some young people might need to do it in a different format than sitting down directly looking you in the eye, which is such a brave thing to do and should be recognised for that.
Definitely. And so you've listened to them. What's the next stage? Do you take action? Do you reassure them that the time is going to pass? What's kind of the next part of the process?
I think it's really important to ask them what they think, what they would like next in terms of action, because obviously each situation will be unique and different. And I think that there'll be common fears such as I'm worried if you do something about it, it will make it worse, or I don't know whether people will take it seriously. I think sometimes parents are worried that it's not enough for the school, or that they don't know who to speak to about it or what it will look like. But I think it's important that you kind of come up with an action plan with your young person or with your student or your child or whatever it is, as to kind of what you're going to do in terms of next steps, and that you do those. And I think it's also important that when young people say that they don't want any action taken, we do have a duty of care as adults to make sure that all of our children are safe from harm. We all have the right to feel safe at all times, and it's really important that we all behave in a way that echoes that and models that for our young people.
Exactly. Well, some really good advice there. We're going to be discussing about how you can support yourself with bullying after Mojo. Lady plays for you next.
The MK Mental Health Hour with Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support.
We are loving that here in the studio this evening. Mojo and Lady hear me tonight on the Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour. Tonight we're discussing bullying with John from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support and Kat Newman from Youth Counselling Service. We're talking about what bullying is and the warning signs and how to support somebody if you do notice those warning signs. Now we're going to look at how you can support yourself. So what are the first kind of things to look at, John?
Yeah, well, the main thing to know is that if you start recognising or you have an inkling that you might be being bullied, or if it's completely obvious that you're being bullied, is to know that it's not all right. It's not acceptable. It's not normal, and things can change, and they will change. There are, after you've been able to speak to someone, whether that is an adult, whether it is a colleague, or anyone else within sort of your support network that can help you put a plan in place from the link before. There are then some things that you can do to start getting the ball rolling on protecting yourself, making yourself feel a little bit safer while that plan kicks in and you sort of start working towards getting away from this bullying, victimised behaviour.
And one of your kind of sayings, Kat, is to feel your feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what a lot of human beings do is try to not feel their feelings. They will eat their feelings, or they will punch a wall, or they will do different things. And I think sometimes it is just sitting quietly and letting yourself feel your feelings. And something that is really helpful with that is to just sit and try to just name them. And that's quite a nice way for you to start to kind of engage with your feelings. And a lot of us in our society, particularly in England, about stiff upper lip and all of that kind of thing. We're kind of taught,
have feelings. What are they?
Yeah, to hide it and suppress it, and actually that's really damaging. And then we might then have behaviours that we don't want ourselves. So yeah, feel your feelings, sit with it, cry if you need to, punch a pillow, or do something healthy to release your anger and your rage. I like to go to the arcades and shoot things. So it depends on what you're into, but there are healthy, positive ways to feel your feelings, and it really does make a difference.
Yeah, and if we start seeing ourselves turning towards more of those unhealthy things and responding in an angry way more often, or turning to more food or drink or anything like that, then that's when we need to kind of intervene with ourselves. And feeling our feelings can really help us figure out, okay, if my feelings that I tend to go to are more anger led, then I have, you can build up a plan around what you can do yourself individually to control that, like going to an arcade and zombies and dinosaurs.
Or boxing.
Some zombies.
A lot of people do running. They find that really helps with kind of anger and rage. And if you're feeling victimised and you feel that you haven't got any power and you've lost control in a situation, then it would be normal for you to feel angry about that and for you to feel that you want some support.
Yeah. Because it's also about how you start responding to, because bullying, after you've had this conversation, unfortunately, it might not just come to an end immediately. There might be a little bit of a runoff, or it might continue for some time. So there are ways in which you can change or address the way that you're responding to the bully. So this could be
directly when the bullying is kind of happening, how you respond to that.
Yeah, because obviously if you are feeling particularly angry or you're feeling isolated or alone, you might respond in quite an emotional way. But if you can address the way that you're responding and kind of downplay what they're saying to you and maybe shrug it off, it's going to be really difficult to ignore it. But it's so key, because we said in the break as well, Kat, that bullies are doing it for a reason. They're trying to gain control over a situation.
Yeah, and
so
as
soon as you take that
away,
as soon as you take that away, then it could be.
Yeah, they lose interest, and it can be quite quickly. So you might find after you've told somebody about it that it then escalates because they're trying to get back that control which they've lost. But ultimately, you know, over time, if you consistently act in a way which demonstrates that you no longer are willing to give away any power to them, and you are not interested in kind of responding in the way that you previously did, they will get bored and they will find a different way to outlet that with somebody else potentially, unfortunately, but maybe in a different way. Yeah.
So tune into what you're feeling, address any negative feelings that you might be having with different hobbies or shooting zombies or anything like that.
Yeah.
Figure out how you're replying to the bullying acts, and then while that plan in the background is kicking in, this should get the ball rolling on solving this situation. But it's not okay. Shouldn't be treated in that way at all. And if you can keep reminding yourself that is that it's not normal, you do deserve better, then you can start getting out of that situation.
Some really, really useful tips that have been shared this evening from you guys. Thank you so much. We're going to do a bit of a summary of some of the top tips after we hear from David Guetta and Usher. This is Without You on MKFM. David Guetta and Usher, Without You on MKFM. So this at Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour, we're discussing bullying with John from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support and Kat Newman from Youth Counselling Service. So many helpful tips. So we're going to do a very quick summary of what we've kind of run through this evening, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, some of the most important things to do is spot the signs. And if you are going to approach someone, ask them how they're doing, if you think that there might be bullying going on, to actually listen to them. So stop what you're doing, give your attention to that person. To support that person moving forward or set up a plan, then it's understanding what the actual victim wants to do. So what in an ideal world do they want to happen? And some other additional things that could be helpful, especially in relation to safeguarding, could be to limit the internet access if it's a child. So actually, what are they seeing? What are they gaining access to? And if there is any physical harm, then it's definitely worth getting it checked out by a doctor. From an individual's point of view, while that plan's getting in place and building up some momentum, to help yourself feel a bit more safe, just understand that it isn't okay. It's not normal. It shouldn't be happening. And you can begin to reach out to either the person that you've already set the plan up with, just keep them informed on what's going on. You could also go to the wonderful people at Youth Counselling Service, or come to Arthur Ellis and you can speak to us about it. Teachers, work colleagues, anything like that. Feel your feelings. Make sure that you know how you're feeling, and all of those negative feelings, have little action plans for them. So if you're feeling angry, what am I going to do to help that? So in a way that you're able to be in a bit more control of how you're feeling and respond in a way to the bully that is going to essentially ignore them, belittle them a little bit, or not necessarily belittle them, but make sure that their actions aren't having as much of an impact on you. And if you can ignore them or respond that is downplaying the abuse that you're getting, then you're able to basically defuel their fire, and they will get bored and they will stop, and then you're able to move forward and become a much better, stronger person because of it.
And as always, all of these tips are in a very helpful, digestible guide over on your website. So if people want to either get in contact with you or check out that guide, your website is?
Yeah, so head over to arthurellismhs.com, and there's a guide on bullying, but a variety of other guides on there to just freely download. And
Kat, there is so much support out there if people are going through bullying themselves or can recognise it elsewhere. There are various charities, but if people want to come to Youth Counselling Services here in Milton Keynes, your website, please.
Yep, it's mkyis.org.uk.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And John, do you know off the top of your head what we're talking about next week?
It's all about self-care next week.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
a nice
self-care.
hot bath. That's what we like.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get into a bit more depth than that. But
Brilliant.
yeah, definitely have a bath. That's nice.
Well, join us at 7 o'clock next Sunday for another Milton Keynes Mental Health Hour.
The MK Mental Health Hour, in partnership with Thomas Connolly Estate Agents.